Hey everyone. So this is my tutorial on routing for the Octatrack. And I just figured it would be helpful to start out just by giving you guys some information on how I personally route my Octatrack. I figured this is a lot easier than trying to go over one specific feature of the Octatrack, and hopefully you guys get some information that you didn't know. So first of all, I have track 1 as a static machine. Static means that I can hold larger files, and this allows me to put entire songs, which I've warped in Ableton. I highly recommend you do that. Warp it in Ableton so that there are no issues with tempo, and then once you go into, once you put it into the Octatrack, you can go into Audio Edit, set the attribute as the exact tempo of the track, and then you won't have any issues. You can cut off any sections in the beginning that that throw off that timing, and then you will be good to go. I have a one-shot trigger, which allows me to, and so by the way, hotkey for activating a one-shot trigger is yes, so that it fires once you get started. Let me just... So I have that track playing in the background, and it won't trigger after that one shot until I activate again. So I could do this. Activate one more time, it'll just keep looping. So I use this first track as a way to introduce existing fully mixed tracks into my performance. And I guess I should have prefaced this. The way that I try to use this is in a mostly improvisational way. So I'm live jamming, I'm adding samples, I'm removing things. I use it primarily as a performance tool. Anyway, moving on. So track 2, I have, I should probably just do these 3 tracks together because I have them set up as flex machines. So flex machine means that you can use a shorter file, which is stored in the computer's RAM, to sample slices, and it's a bit more of a mobile way and a more efficient way to use the samples because it because the computer is working faster within the Octatrack. So I have the, let's start with track 4 because 4 is my kick track. And so what I use this for is I have a folder. The way that I have my folder set up is that I have all my kicks in one folder, which allows me to press function left and right to cycle between subsequent kicks. I have the same thing set up on track 3, except instead of kicks, it's all top parts, so hats and snares. So I can cycle between these as I All right, so that is those 2 tracks. I also have a flex machine in track 2, but track 2's flex machine is set to the record buffer 2, which corresponds to track 2. The reason I have that is so that I can sample or resample things that I happen to be playing live during a live performance. I have my recording buffer set to, I have track 2 set so that I can record from Q. You can also set it to C and D, you can set it to AB, which means that anything plugged into here will directly, the dry signal coming out will be recorded into this. But I have mine set to Q, which means that anything that I have activated as a Q track will record into this. I prefer that because it's more flexible. So on the fly, if I, for example, want to resample this track, I can do so. So let's demonstrate that. So I have my, I'm going to activate my track. And this is muted currently. Oh, first of all, by the way, to activate a one-shot record buffer trigger, or record trigger, you hold the track and press yes. So it's similar to activating a one-shot trigger, except you hold the track and you press yes at the same time. So I'm not going to do that until I decide that I want to record a piece of what's going through here on the one, because I have my one-shot trigger on the one. So yeah, let's try that out. This plus sign indicates that it is recording. All right, so this should have the track inside it. Let's just test it out. So now this track is playing. All right, so my length is set to low, so if I do this, all right, hold, okay. Why is it only playing one section? Okay, cool. So this is interesting because I could be doing this on the fly and then affecting the speed of it, you know, while the other track is running. So for example, let's see what it sounds like if I'm doing something live at the same time. I'm going to roll up this bass filter on the filter effect so that I can keep the kick localized to track 1. I'm going to activate this record buffer. This is still muted. I'm going to reverse the rate of the sample. So you can hear it looping in the background. So track 2 is playing at half speed. So this basically shows that you can do a lot of things on the fly as you're playing. You can record things in. You can have things play alongside certain tracks. So I have this faded out, but it's still playing in the background. So I have 2 things playing at the same time. All right. That's probably enough of track 2 for now, but we're going to come back to it. All right, so now I have track 5. So track 5 is my through track, which means that I can play outside sources through A, B, C, or D. I can activate them by going to either of these options. I can have a combination of both, sort of combined into a mono track. I can have one or the other, or I can have them set up as left and right. Right now I have input B going into my OP1, so that allows me to play the OP1 straight into the Octatrack. I have a reverb effect and a compressor, which actually ends up helping a lot because sometimes the signal going into the Octatrack is pretty weak and it needs a preamp of some sort. And this acts as a quick fix for a preamp. I will say, though, that if you are trying to record a microphone into this, it's much harder. And usually when I do that, I have an outside preamp. You can get one for about $60 on Amazon. That will do the trick. And because normally if you plug a microphone directly into the Octatrack without some sort of outside preamp, and if you try to boost the signal with a compressor, you'll get a lot of hiss. I haven't figured out a way to fix that, so a preamp solves the problem pretty easily. So, as for the pickup machine, or as for the through machine, sorry, one thing to keep in mind is that you have to have a trig on the first, or on one of these to activate it. If you don't, it won't play. So you have to have one, and the moment it passes it, it activates the through track. What else about the through track? I think that's everything for now, but we're coming back to it soon because we have a pickup machine on track 6. Now my pickup machine is set so that, and by the way, the pickup machine is, the information on the pickup machine's input is decided by going into the record settings here. Unlike the through machine where you choose the inputs here, you have to choose the inputs for the pickup machine in the same place that you would choose the record settings for flex machines and things like that. So I have my pickup machine referring only to track 5, mostly because I want to be able to loop this machine basically as many times as I want. If I had a different project, maybe I might use the queue as I showed you before, so that I could then sort of loop different sections. But for this particular project, I only want to loop the OP1. So all the other inputs are not activated. And let's use a kick here as a backdrop. All right, so that's kind of a cool patch. So you activate a pickup machine by pressing Rec 1, you stop it by pressing Rec 2, and you stop looping by pressing Rec 2. I can go deeper into this in another video if there's enough enthusiasm for this one. But for the time being, let's just test this thing out. All right. So I have this track playing indefinitely. It's important to keep in mind that pickup machines will erase themselves the moment you stop playback. So make sure you keep it running or resample it into, say, a record buffer like this. Things you can do with the pickup machine. You can pitch it down. You can reverse it. Notice that it also keeps its time. It doesn't slow down in speed when you pitch it down. I actually like the way it sounds pitched down, so I'm going to keep it that way. So now I'm going to resample it into this flex machine, as I showed you before. So it should be in there. Let's try. It is, oh, because I didn't activate the queue, right. So I'm going to queue up this machine. All right. Maybe give it some reverb. Cool, so now that this has been sampled into here, I don't have to worry about having this track playing the loop anymore. And as you see, when I come back, everything's been erased and ready to start over. But I have it resampled in here. And okay, so track 7. Track 7 is sort of my go-to track for having pre-warped, pre-sliced melodic samples and musical samples. So I have this for kicks, this for top beats, and then I have this last guy for melodic things. So basically I have all my rhythm, and this track is for large form songs and things like that. And then on this side I have all the melodic stuff. I have a through machine for this. I have a loop machine for other for building melodic content, and I have this track for anything else that might fall through the cracks. This is sort of like the fun track for me, because I've sampled a ton of things, and I just sort of go to this whenever I want to play with some of those samples that I picked up. So for example, I have this sample, which is actually here's the first version of it, Ghost, right? So Ghost. So this is a sample of Chairlift's song Ghost. But I chopped it up a bunch, and I made this other version called, I don't know why I called it Steer, but and this sort of shows off the power of the Octatrack, because you can start with one sample, chop it up a bunch, resample it back in with the record buffer, save it as its own file, and then you have this unique chopped up piece that you can't really make heads or tails of, or it kind of loses its original intent. So then I have this, and this allows me to sort of like play around. Anyway, so that's basically, oh, right, master tracks. So I have my master track set up through system. Actually, so I go to my project settings, and I go down to personalize under system, and then under this I have, is that where you find it? Oops. I don't actually know where you find it. Wow. That's pretty terrible for a tutorial to not know where things are. But I guess we'll just have to find that out another time. But I have my master track set up as track 8. You can have it set up as a separate track, but I really like having my master with 2 effects. This allows me a lot of flexibility if I'm doing a live set and I'm improvising, and it sort of creates more of an atmosphere for if you don't have an outboard effects unit or something. I use this crossfader, for example, to create reverb, as you saw earlier. Or you can also use it for distortion, which is kind of fun. Right. That's why I have my master track here. Other things about the master track. That's pretty much it. I would like to have an 8th track. It does become limiting sometimes to think about the space that you have. This is my personal setup. Obviously, I have other projects with different setups. I have some where I'm more sampling focused. I have some where I like to plug in, multiple instruments. So one through track doesn't really do enough. I have one that has a vocal track set up so that I can sing and resample that. But this is my current setup that I just actually put together today for live DJing, and I think that's sort of the great thing about the Octatrack is everybody uses it a little bit different. So hopefully this video kind of gives you an insight into one possible way to set up the Octatrack, and if people like it enough, I might do some more videos. I'd love to get back in. I'd love to do a tutorial on slicing and sampling because that's something that I've recently learned how to do that really just awoke a lot of interest in building new tracks out of the Octatrack, like from the get-go. It's just a really cool tool. So I'd like to dedicate a different video to that. So hope you guys like it. And I don't know, I guess people say like or comment at the end here. So do that. All right. Thanks, everybody.